Hey everybody, it's February 10th of 2025 and this is chapter 29. Talking about, well actually this is kind of a hodgepodge chapter. A lot of different stuff going on in the 1920s. And so, well, let's just get into it, shall we? Alright, so the lost generation. So this guy right there, that is Ernest Hemingway. And he's famous for writing a couple of books that, you know, off the top of my head, I can't think of. Oh, let's see, The Old Man and the Sea, and something about the tolling of the bells. The bell tolls for okay, The Old Man and the Sea. That's his big one. No, there's another big one. It doesn't matter. The Lost Generation. And so this is the generation of people post World War I. What are they doing with their lives in Europe? What are they doing? Because Europe is, well, they're reeling, right? They have a whole bunch of destruction. A lot of cities are, right? A lot of yucky stuff. Forests are gone because of all that terrible stuff going on. And it was Europe's kind of basically discombobulated. Germany was a lot of different pieces of land were reassigned. Austria-Hungary was taken apart. Yeah, it's a crazy time. So we call this the lost generation of Europe. All right. So, in the 20s, we passed this new law called the Kellogg-Briand Pact. And a whole bunch of countries around the world signed this. And the Kellogg-Briand Pact said this: it is illegal to declare war from here on out. In fact, the Kellogg-Briand Pact, I think, is still in effect. Here we are in 2025. It is illegal to declare war. If you're asking yourself, wait, since that law was passed, how many wars have there been in world history? Oh yeah, I can think of, oh, I don't know, 600? Yeah, right. Anyway, it does actually say that you can declare war if it's defensive. So if somebody declares war on you, then you can declare war on them, and then you're not illegal, the other team's illegal. Wow. The cartoon, we have the Kellogg-Briand Pact, it's the and the cake, and then the guy, the world, and we've got the various candles that are being lit and were blown out, and then in 1939, something happens in 1939. I think that's next chapter. Anyway, so what's going on in the world right now? The 1920s. Well, we've got the discombobulation of Europe, and we've got the, you know, which way are the countries going to go? Are they going to go conservative? Or are they going to go liberal? And here's the deal with that. In the United States of America, when we say conservative and liberal, we're talking about, you know, Republicans and Democrats, and we're talking about, from our point of view, conservatives and liberals, you know, truthfully, they're not that far away from each other with regard to how they actually think things should go compared to the Europeans. When we talk with the Europeans and we say conservative, well, we're talking about authoritarian kings and things like that. And if we say liberal, then we're talking about socialism and communism. So two extremes, very extremes, conservative and liberal. So, which way are the countries going to go? I guess that's the question, isn't it? That's the question. Okay. Over here in the United States, we have what's called the Roaring Twenties. The Roaring Twenties. People are getting rich. Everybody's having a great time. It's all going to work out for the best. We've got a couple of, let's see, we've got the flapper. That's a dance style slash dress style where with the beads and the I'm not going to dance for you. The flappers. We've got the Cotton Club. We've got the speakeasies in the 1920s. In American history, we're going to learn that we have this thing called Prohibition, where we outlawed alcohol in the United States. But we've got all of these clubs that serve illegal drinks. the advent of jazz. We've got Duke Ellington, and we've got Count Basie, and then really the next kind of out of that you get Louis Armstrong here on trumpet. You get Glenn Miller and the big band sounds. And so that's all coming out of this time period. Harlem, the Harlem Renaissance, the new writers coming out of that area, like Ralph Ellison, etc., etc. Although he's from Oklahoma, interestingly enough. But 1920s, everybody's getting rich. Everything's going wonderful. It's all going to be great, and it's going to be women in the United States, in Great Britain, and in Germany. Women are finally going to get officially the right to vote. We call that suffrage, women's suffrage. And so, yay, women finally get to vote. This cartoon here, this is election day, and we've got this lady, and she's going off to vote. She's leaving the guy home with the 2 kids. She's going to go vote. And so then here we have Lady Justice and American womanhood, and they're hugging because of the amendment that was passed in the Constitution. And they're, yay, women can now vote. So this is good, this is good, this is good. The 1920s, more fashion, more leisure, a declining birth rate. And you're thinking, is that good, declining birth rate? Well, if you have paid attention in AP Geography, then you will remember Rostow's stages of development, and the developed, not developing, but the developed countries, they have a lower birth rate than the developing countries. And so when your birth rate starts to, that means you've made it, you're at the top. Well, according to Rostow. That's human geography, don't stress about it. Yeah, maybe stress about it. Okay, let's jump to Italy. So we got this guy, his name is Benito Mussolini. And Italy is struggling, just like all the other European nations from the war. And here we have Benito, and he forms this party called the Fascio di Combattimento. Fascio di Combattimento Party, the struggle for the Union Party. And he's all about the pew pew, pow pow. It says he's a nationalistic leader that advocates violence when necessary. He looks at Italy and says the parliament, in the United States we call it Congress, right? He looks at the Italian parliament and he says, you guys are, no, it's not working, it's not working. And Benito, he was not very happy with how Italy got very little out of the Treaty of Versailles. Remember, the Treaty of Versailles was the peace treaty for World War I, where Germany had to give up all that stuff, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Even though the king of Italy was there and he signed the document, Benito wasn't very happy with what Italy didn't get out of that. So, interestingly enough, King Vittorio Emanuele III, he's also struggling to Parliament, and he makes the decision. He goes to Benito, the military leader, and he says, hey, Benito, can you help me out with the Parliament? They're not really doing what I'm asking, and if you could maybe a little bit with your pew pew help me out. And so Benito goes, sure. So how do you get Parliament to help you out? Well, you eliminate the competition, assassination, and other means and or strong arm means. And so he's going to eliminate people. He's going to have the state of Italy take over control of basically production and factories, and he's going to nationalize a whole bunch of stuff. Ooh. And then he's going to push propaganda. Join the military. You can become just like all the other cool people. So that's Benito Mussolini. Don't worry, we're going to come back to him later. All right, so Treaty of Versailles, we've redrawn the map of Europe. And so we have a whole bunch of brand new countries over here that didn't really exist before. We used to just call that Austria-Hungarian Empire and the Ottoman Empire down there. So now we have Czechoslovakia, and we have Austria and Hungary, which are different. We have the Kingdom of Serbia, Croatia, and Slovenia, and that's all. We're going to call that Yugoslavia at some point. We're going to add Lithuania, and Latvia, and Estonia, and Belarus, and Poland is going to be a new country, and Ukraine. And so all these brand new countries are going to pop up. And I mean, yay, good for them, right? Here's the problem with that. The borders are not drawn well. So we've got people from different groups, let's say the Serbs and the Croats, who are put together in one country, but they don't necessarily like each other. So when we draw, but then they redraw the line, and they split the Serbs in half, and they make this is not going to work. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Yeah, we'll see. Anything else I want to say about that? Many of these new countries started with parliaments, but they're going to ultimately end up with dictators. Yeah, you'll see. World War II is coming, guys. Okay. Colonies, Great Britain colonies, so Canada, Australia, New Zealand. They are going to become independent, even though they're still, we love the Queen or the King. Let's see, at this point, this would be the King, right? Because in 1920s, it's King, is it Philip? Anyway, this is a little before Queen Elizabeth. And so they're going to become independent, and even though they still have the coins with the monarch on there, they're still pro-Britain. Kind of like, even in the United States, we still have some people who are followers of the royal. We call them, what do we call them? Royalists. Mrs. Jones she likes to follow all that kind of stuff. In fact, let's see, was that 1981 when Prince Charles, heir to the throne, married Lady Diana Spencer. So Prince Charles and Lady Di, when they got married in 1981, 750 million people watched that wedding on TV. I was one of them. I was 11 years old. I remember there was an oboe quartet. And I remember her dress was really long. Okay, there you go. Why are we talking about that? Anyway, the Canada and Australia and New Zealand are now kind of all off on their own. Canada is going to do really well. They're going to also establish a transcontinental railroad, and they're going to export food, and because think about all that natural resources they have up there, gold and trees and Canadian bacon, hockey sticks, and they're going to have an uptick in immigration. Okay, and then Australia is going to be more socialistic. And so their government's going to be involved in more of their stuff, labor disputes and nationalization of some factories and controlling infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then New Zealand, what do we know about them? They have two major islands, the North Island and the South Island. And the names of the North Island and the South Island are as follows. Are you writing this down? North Island and South Island. That's the name of their islands. What else is New Zealand famous for? Lord of the Rings. That's where they filmed the Lord of the Rings. Okay, well there you go. America. We're here. We're coming. The American Colossus. We're coming. But interestingly enough, not for y'all. Not coming for y'all. We're just going to get bigger and badder. The United States, between the wars, between World War I and World War II, we're going to become isolationist again. Isolationist, the idea that we're going to stay out of everybody's business. If you stay out of our business, Monroe Doctrine, you stay out of our business, we stay out of your business, we're going to call it isolationist. we have a situation in the United States in the 1920s, the Red Scare, because we think, oh, the communists are coming, especially the Russians. We're going to talk about them in a second. The Russians are coming, and we just stay away from all the communists, the Red Scare. We are going to have a huge economic boom in the 1920s. Golly, right? With the assembly line and cars and, for that matter, Hollywood. Hollywood land, with the Model T car right there. There's the guys on the assembly line, and we've got Harding and Coolidge and Hoover, and those presidents are going to push capitalism, push for big money for the corporations. Not so much for the little guy, but we're going to make a lot of money really quickly. Call it the Roaring 20s, right? And so high tariffs on other countries. In fact, high tariffs on other countries and other countries high tariffs on us. Remember, a tariff is a tax on other countries. So a lot of things are going on. People are buying on credit because everything's going wonderful and everything's going great. And the Great Depression is coming. Don't tell anybody. Again, the Russians, the communists, the Soviets. If Russia should win, then you see she's down there, and there's a giant boot stepping on her if the Russians win. And then over here we've got this guy, and it's called, on his sleeve it says civilization, and he's reaching towards solid ground, but he's being sucked under, he's being pulled under by the Bolsheviks, the communists. And so, and then in the center we have Captain America, and the and the top line, Captain America, Commie Smasher, striking back at the Soviet Captain America, coming to a theater near you. Japan, man, I told you, this thing bounces around everywhere. Hey, it's the missus. Hello. Sorry, I'll be up there in a little bit. I'm currently filming. Say hi to everybody. Okay. Okay, I'm on it. Okay, bye. Mrs. Jones says hi. Japan, and so here we are in Japan. Japan, oh my goodness, they're doing very well as well. Yeah, I'm a little discombobulated. Okay, back to Japan. After the war, remember the Treaty of Versailles? They got some good stuff, some islands out there. And between the wars, they're going to do really well. They're going to introduce consumer culture. They're going to industrialize like the United States. They are going to ramp up food. Their population is growing. They're going to push education. Japan is doing well. Here's the problem for Japan. Japan is resource poor. The actual islands, they're resource poor. I mean, what do you have on Japan? You've got a lot of tea. That's about it. Yeah. And so they have no oil. They don't have any natural areas for oil. So Japan has to go get oil from somewhere. I wonder how they're going to do that. I mean, I don't wonder because I know, but I'm pretending to wonder for you. I wonder how they're going to do that. I guess they may just have to expand. And when the Japanese start expanding, Mexico. Let's jump back across the ocean and let's go to Mexico. So Mexico, European markets for Mexico are drying up. The United States is taking advantage of Mexico. Mexico is not doing very well. And so we've got other countries are coming in and they're taking over some of Mexico's plants and factories, and resources, and it's not going well. It's not going well. So we're going to have a revolution in Mexico. And the short version is that let's just say what is it? Dictator. His name is Porfirio Diaz. He's been a dictator since 1877-ish, and so he is going to. He's not following the Constitution, according to the revolutionaries, and he makes some poor decisions. And one of his last poorest decision is that he's going to be interviewed in 1908, and in the interview he basically says, "It's good to be the king. The king doesn't have to follow the rules," and that's going to cause some issues. And so there's going to be another election. It's going to be between him and this guy by the name of Madero, and Diaz wins. But then it comes out that the election was rigged, and there's all sorts of naughty stuff going on during the election process, and so then Madero forms revolution. And so Madero kicks out Diaz, and then Huerta, who is a general who doesn't like Madero, so Huerta then arrests Madero and his vice president. Then you have this guy Carranza, who then kills Huerta, and then you have Obregon, who then assassinates Carranza, and in between all of this, you've got a guy named Pancho Villa, who's causing problems for everybody. And so it's a pretty crazy time period between basically 1918 and 1922-ish in Mexico. We've got a lot of assassinations going on, a lot of revolution going on. But in 1917, we do have in Mexico, we have a brand new constitution. And that constitution, I think it's still going. Ish, it's still going. The constitution is going to push for, it's very pro-nationalism, pro-indigenous peoples of Mexico. And because of that, art is going to flourish. We're going to have communism going to come in, and it's going to start integrating into society. We've got nationalistic songs in Mexico that are going to come in. Mexico is going to become a democracy, but there's only one political party. It's called the Party of the Institutionalized Rebellion, right? The PRI. In fact, the PRI is going to win every single presidential election from 1928 to the year 2000. Well, when you only have one political party in charge, that's kind of how that works, yes? Communism is going to clash with the Catholic Church in Mexico. Mexico, big Catholic country, and so communism is atheistic. Catholicism is not atheistic, because Catholicism is Catholic. That's how that works. All right, Pancho Villa right there. There's Pancho, and again he's causing problems to all sorts of people during the revolution. He's a very well-liked person until he's assassinated. But he's going to do some stuff. He's going to try to invade United States in New Mexico, right across the border. President Wilson's going to send in an American army to come get this guy, like 5,000 troops to come capture him. Anyway, there you go. So Pancho Villa. This is not Mexican history, but if you want to look up something, this whole time period is really kind of interesting. All right. Now let's jump back across to Russia. And so we've got Russia. The last time we talked about Russia, we had this guy, right? There's Rasputin. There's Rasputin, who was poisoned, clubbed, stabbed, drowned, shot, drowned, right? Rasputin, the one who healed Alexei. There's the kid that has the hemophilia. And so there's Anastasia, and there's the Tsar, and there's his wife, Alexandra, and then the other 3 sisters. Yeah, of the family. So that's the royal family. Okay, as last we left the Tsar Nicholas II, he's out in the front ranks. Well, he's going to come back, and Russia is falling apart. It's falling apart. And so in February of 1917, basically they get the Tsar to step down. He's going to abdicate his throne, and they're going to have this provisional government led by this guy by the name of Kerensky, and it's they're going to try to become democratic. Democratic. And so that's going to work. It's going to work for 6 or 7 months, and then it's going to fall apart because the Bolsheviks are through with this. And so in October of 1917, we call that the October Revolution. Interestingly enough, though, it's the October Revolution, but it's also the November Revolution, and not because it took 2 months to do it, but because the Russians were actually still on the old calendar, the Julian calendar. The rest of us are on the Gregorian calendar, and so their months were slightly different than our months. And so when this happened, the October Revolution, when we had about 40,000 communists invade the White Palace in St. Petersburg. It was November according to the Russians, but it's October according to the rest of the world. And well, there you go. So it's the October-November Revolution. And so the Bolsheviks are going to be in charge. And so we've got this guy by the name of Lenin. We've got this guy by the name of Trotsky. So Lenin is in charge of the Bolsheviks. Trotsky's in charge of the Red Army. We've got a guy by the name of Stalin. And so they're all going to kick off the Soviet Union and the Communist Revolution. Okay, and so then, unfortunately, Nicholas and his family, they are going to be executed in 1918. I want to say June. Doesn't matter. But in 1918, they're going to be told, "Hey, we're going to take you for a ride, but we're going to go down to the basement before we get to the car." And so they took the gang down there, along with the maid and maybe a footman, and they were told, "Hey, why don't you stay right here?" And then the story talks about how Nicholas, he asked for a chair for his wife because she wasn't feeling very good, and then a chair for the little kid because he's sickly. And so they all sat there, and then here come the Cheka. The Cheka are the evil guards, the secret police. There's the word I'm looking for. The secret police, and they came in, and they lined them up against the wall, and they assassinated them. The story is kind of interesting about the assassination, how it took these guys, the estimates of 70, so you're looking at 7 or 8 people here, and it took them 70 bullets, and the 70 bullets still didn't kill everybody. Nicholas was killed quickly. His wife, the Tsarina, was killed quickly, but most of the children survived the initial round of bullets, and that was because, according to the stories, their clothes had been lined with the Russian jewels, and so they had diamonds in their seams of their clothes, and so diamonds, the bullets hit the diamonds, the bullets don't penetrate, and so the kids survived the initial round of bullets. And so when the head guy comes storming down the steps and he sees the kids are still alive, and he's looking at these guys like, you can't even kill kids. He says, well, then use the butt of your gun or the bayonet, which is the knife at the end of the gun, to kill them. And so then the stories talk about how, I know this is awful, but how they went up and they stabbed the kids. And even then, they talked about how, he talks in the history about how Anastasia, she was stabbed a couple of times, but then even then the knife didn't go through her clothes because of the diamonds, which is where we get the story of Anastasia escaping and then rushing off and not being found, and she's the true princess of Russia. No, no, no. She was shot in the head. Once the pokey didn't get her, then they shot her in the head. And then they took the bodies of everybody, and then they went outside and buried them in a secret location. And then there you go. And so the Tsar and his family are dead. In 1977, I want to say it was 77, a student who was paying attention found the secret burial area and dug them up, and then found all but Alexei and Anastasia, which means everybody was like, whoa, maybe Anastasia is still alive. And then they found her and Alexei in a separate shallow grave down the way. So they're all accounted for. In 1998, I may be off of that, the Russian government officially, no, 1985. That didn't matter. Sometime in the late 1900s, the Russian government officially opened a murder. They opened up a murder case and investigated, but all the guards who killed the royal family, they were all dead. So then they closed the case because it didn't matter at that point. And then, well, there you go. That's the room where they were killed. Okay, so Lenin and Trotsky and Stalin. When you get a chance to read, it's a short read, you can read it in 2 nights. This book called Animal Farm. It's a cute little story about pigs and dogs and horses and donkeys and sheep and cows, and it's a cute little story. But the entire thing is this huge analogy of the Russian Revolution. And so Lenin and Stalin and Trotsky, they are the pigs, Old Major and Napoleon and Snowball, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Which is why I have a giant pig down there. So there's Lenin, and he's talking to the crowd. He's the head Bolshevik, and he's kind of like he's the guy with the ideas. He's the idea guy. You got Trotsky down here, and he's in charge of the Red Army, and then you've got Stalin. You got a picture of Stalin later of the pig. And so they're going to form this country. Ultimately, in 1922, it's going to be called the Union of Soviet Socialists, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, the USSR, and that they are going to be around until 1992. There's only one parliament, and the people vote, but there's only one party. We've heard this before. And the secret police, the Cheka, Stalin is going to use those guys. Goodness. Interestingly enough, Lenin is going to die early on in this. He's going to die from a stroke. And so then we're going to have Trotsky and Stalin, and they're going to vie for power. During this entire time, between the October Revolution and this, there's a whole civil war in Russia between the White Army and the Red Army. The Red Army are the communists. The White Army is backed by the United States and France and Great Britain and Japan and Germany and just Russian history. But ultimately, the Soviets are going to win. The communists are going to win here. Trotsky is going to lose in internal fighting with Stalin, and he's going to move to Mexico. And he has a really interesting assassination story where the assassin came up and shot him in the back of the head while he was riding. Ask me later. It's a fun little story. Okay. And so then we get Stalin. So Stalin's the only one left, and there he is, Stalin with a mustache. And in the United States history, I mean, this is the bad guy, right? Stalin, although he's going to be Uncle Joe for us during World War II, because we're going to be fighting on the same side against Hitler. All right, so all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. That's a quote from Animal Farm, the book written by George Orwell. That's communism in a nutshell. Hey, we're all equal. Communism, we're all equal. Some of us are more equal than others. Right, that's how that works. Stalin collectivizes farms, and he comes up with 5-year plans. In 5 years, we're going to have this and this and this and this and this. And then when that doesn't happen, he's going to rewrite history and he's going to say, well, I meant to say this, and see, we did that. And then everybody's like, oh, you're so great, Mr. Stalin. Because if you don't say you're so great, Mr. Stalin, then he's going to purge you. And that's not good. He killed millions and millions and millions of people. But that's later. Anything else? Aristocracy. The aristocracy disappears. The aristocracy, that's all the nobles, the rich guys. Why did they disappear? Because he's going to assassinate everybody. What is that? Oh, hey, we're fighting with the lawnmower outside. Okay. And then last but not least in this chapter, we have China. So the Qing dynasty, Q-I-N-G, the Qing dynasty, they have what, 18 emperors, I want to say? 12 emperors. Puyi is the last of the emperors, and here he is. He becomes emperor when he's 2 years old, and he's going to be the emperor until he is 8 years old, maybe 6 years old. He's pretty young when he officially abdicates, or he officially gets abdicated. Abdicate means I'm officially stepping down on my own terms. And he's going to do this, and he's going to have an interesting life later. But we no longer have emperors in China. So what do we have in China? Well, they're going to try to form a democracy. They're going to try to form, and things are going to go kind of screwy here, because what's going on? We've got a lot of different groups. We've got the military commanders who have probably the best shot at taking over the country, but we've had military commanders before, and that's not working out. Merchants and bankers have power over the trade. Students and intellectuals have power over ideas. We have secret societies that want a return of an emperor, want a return of a king. We've got foreign powers that are trying to take pieces of China away, for example, Japan and Russia. So it's a whole big mess. In 1919, we had the May 4th movement, and there's 13 or 14 some odd universities there in Beijing, and they all kind of meet in the morning of May 4th and say, hey, you know what we need to do? We're going to have a revolution of ideas. We're going to go to Tiananmen Square, which is, well, that's a drawing, but the Tiananmen, that's the front gate of the palace of the emperor, the front gate. And so Tiananmen Square right there. And so there's thousands of students who later that day are going to meet, and they're going to start saying, hey, we're not really happy right now with the government. We're really not happy with the Treaty of Versailles, because the Treaty of Versailles, we weren't really involved in that, and we're getting, Japan's taking some stuff that we don't want, and a whole bunch of stuff else that they didn't like. And so students and intellectuals are chanting about democracy, and they're chanting that, hey, maybe we want to be more like, you know, the West and not like traditional Chinese. And so we call this the May 4th movement. I wonder what's going to happen with those people. Oh, right, so that's May 4th. So in June, like June 3rd, the Chinese military and police are going to start arresting the students. All right, so why didn't the May 4th ideas grab hold of everybody? Oh, there's the students. There they are protesting right there. Warlords are in charge. They don't like change. Yeah, warlords, when they dying people need immediate change, not promises of a vague timeline. Hey, let's have democracy. When do we want it? Now. How are we going to do it? I don't know. And that's the whole point. Democracy is hard. It's hard to get that started. Okay. So the Chinese National Party is going to continue to build up its army, and they're going to focus on outside the army, because they're worried about the Russians, they're worried about the communist Russians, they're worried about the Japanese that are expanding because of the oil situation, they're worried about outside influences from Western America or Western Europe. The Chinese are worried about everything, but not their people. And the people are starving, and this is bad. It's starting. And so the National Party, they start talking to the communists. Hey, communists, can you help us out here? So then we get this guy, Chiang Kai-shek, and he's super anti-communist, and he's a warlord himself. So he starts taking over China. He starts assassinating communists, and he's going to start. And so, because he's so anti-communist, hey, America, we are pro Chiang Kai-shek, and so we're gonna give him some money, and we're gonna give him some stuff, and we're gonna push him, and we want him to become the new leader of China. And he's going to do pretty well. He's going to do pretty well by doing that. But here's the problem with this: even though he's going to try to get everybody back on the page and become kind of an emperor himself, the people are still starving. The people are starving. He's got to fix this problem. And so enter the communists. The chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, his name is Mao Zedong, so we call him Mao. And there he is, Mao, and he is going to disagree with Chiang Kai-shek. And they are going to, ultimately, they're going to have a battle of words, and then they're going to have a battle of armies. We're going to have a Chinese civil war, and it looks like they're about to really start punching hard, and then Japan invades World War II. So Chiang Kai-shek and Mao, they join forces because the enemy of my enemy is the enemy of my enemy is my friend, and so they're going to join forces, even though they hate each other, to repel the Japanese, and then we get into World War II. Okay. Last slide-ish. So this chapter is all about global connections. It's all about, the global connections. Here's the short version. People are looking inward. They're no longer looking to hold each other's hands and sing Kumbaya. They're looking inward. They're going to start building up militaries inward. So Japan's building their military, Germany's rebuilding their military, and for that matter, the United States, we're becoming nationalistic and isolated. Yes, the League of Nations kind of works. The League of Nations, that's the first attempt of the United Nations. Here we have in this map, we have the League of Nations, countries that represent the League of Nations. If you're in dark blue, then you were part of the original League of Nations, and you stayed all the way to the end of the League of Nations. Yes, the League of Nations ended for various reasons that we'll talk about next chapter. If you're in yellow, that means that you joined and then left. If you're in green, you were a founding member and then you left. If you're in gray, like the United States and Saudi Arabia and Mongolia and the Philippines, then you were never part of the League of Nations. And now light bulbs are going off. Wait, the United States, one of the most powerful countries of the world, was not part of the League of Nations? Which is why, big reason why the League of Nations failed ultimately. All right, so what's going on? The Hollywoodland. Oh man, people want Hollywoodland all around the world. They're becoming Americanized. The United States, the USSR are choosing to become more and more isolated. Tariffs around the world are up, which stifles trade, and Japan is building a large military. So, here's your 6 themes. Human versus environment, government, ideas, economy, gender, social, technology. Okay guys, man, that was a lot of radically different, disparate ideas, but ultimately it's all leading to, we're going to start smacking each other around again in World War II. All right, be good.